I never imagined it would unravel like this. If someone had told me a year ago that Julian and I would part not with screams or slamming doors but with a kiss to the temple and a silence more piercing than fury, I wouldn't have believed them. There was no dramatic crescendo, no betrayal, no secret lover, just the slow erosion of something we had both once held so sacred. And in the end, it wasn't a fight that ended us. It was a whisper. "I can't keep living this way," I said, barely above a breath, unsure if I even meant for him to hear. I hadn't rehearsed it. I hadn't even planned to say anything that night. The words rose from somewhere deep, where the weight of unsaid things had gathered for months, maybe years. He heard me though. I braced myself. For a protest. For hurt. For a refusal to let go. I was ready for tears, his or mine. For him to ask what I meant. For some storm of confusion or anger. But what came instead was stillness. Julian didn't flinch. Didn't blink. His eyes didn't fill with disbelief or soften with emotion. I just emptied. Like he'd already been living with the truth, I had only now gathered the courage to speak aloud. Then, something I never prepared for happened. He leaned in, so gently I almost stepped away, thinking maybe I had misunderstood what this moment was. His breath brushed my cheek, warm and familiar. And then he kissed me, right on the temple. Not a kiss that begged for more. Not one that hinted at reconciliation. It was a kiss of closure. Quiet surrender. A kind of farewell you only offer when there's nothing left to fight for. Without a single word, Julian pulled on his coat. Slow, deliberate, like someone folding up the last chapter of a well-worn book. He walked to the door, opened it and left. The door shut behind him with a soft click, but it echoed like a thunderclap in my chest. I didn't chase him. I didn't call his name. I just stood there, hands limp at my sides, eyes unfocused. There was no relief in the quiet, only a cold, expansive emptiness I hadn't braced for. When I said those words, "I can't keep living this way," I thought it would spark something between us. Fire. An argument. Even heartbreak would have been welcome. At least it would have meant we still felt something. But there was nothing. Just acceptance. Just the end. I sat down on the edge of the couch, knees weak, breath shallow, feeling the moment press into me like an invisible weight. It wasn't sudden. Not really. It had been building for a long time. Distance. The unspoken hurts. The nights we went to bed without touching. And the mornings where we barely acknowledged one another over coffee. We had become logistical partners. Co-managers of a household. Not lovers. Not companions. Somewhere between school pickups and work calls, grocery runs and dental appointments, we had stopped being us. And the truth was, I had waited too long to say something, hoping things would shift, that the fog would lift on its own. But love doesn't renew itself through silence. Dries out, cracks, fades. Until one day you wake up and realize you're just two people inhabiting the same routine. When he turned to look at me one last time, just a glance, nothing more, there was a sadness in his eyes that I hadn't seen in so long. Maybe it had always been there, and I had just been too tired to notice. His nod, barely perceptible, carried more weight than a monologue. Said, "I know. To." That was all. Then he was gone. The next morning was unbearable in its normalcy. The kids woke up chattering about cereal and cartoons. Poor juice. Burnt pancakes. Tied shoelaces. Went through the script of mothering like a pro, but inside everything felt misaligned. Tilted. His shoes weren't by the door. His coat wasn't hanging in the hallway. His toothbrush was still in the holder, but that only made it worse. As if the ghost of him lingered in the corners of our home, watching me pretend I hadn't just let our marriage dissolve into silence. I kept expecting the front door to open, for his voice to cut through the stillness, for him to say it was all a misunderstanding, that we needed to talk. But nothing came. Days passed, and the quiet grew heavier. I didn't just miss Julian's presence. I missed us. I missed the way he used to make me laugh mid-argument, how he instinctively pulled me close when I got overwhelmed, How his hand always found mine during movies, even when we were angry. But I also knew backslash. We were both tired. Both responsible for the growing cracks. Both too wounded to try rebuilding something we hadn't maintained in so long. I had spoken first. But we had both stopped speaking a long time ago.